Well, what's up, everyone? Good morning. It's Aaron Nagler here, Cheesehead TV, coming to you live on the social channels. Tuesday morning, the Packers players have the day off. Coaches will undoubtedly be in, drawing up game plans, scheming up things for the Colts game. Players, the day off. But the Cheesehead TV peeps, we don't take a day off. We come to you each and every day, 365. Regarding the Green Bay Packers, that's what we do around here. It's good to see everybody in the comments section. Hopefully, people have washed away the taste of that Jaguars victory that was ugly to watch. But as always, when you go back and look at the tape, it's never nearly as bad as it felt in the moment. And there's certainly some stuff you can take away from that game that is positive. Certainly some stuff that the Packers need to work on. But we forge ahead and look forward to a game against the Colts, which is no joke. That game has been flexed into the late afternoon window on Sunday afternoon, 4:25, I believe, kickoff. That team is no joke. They have a legit defense. They can score. It's going to be a knock 'em, sock 'em kind of game, I think. And Packers got to come correct. I do think the neutral environment should help the Packers. They certainly have struggled in the wind the last 2 out of the last 3 weeks. What's up, everyone? Good morning to everybody. Ken, good morning. How are you? Hi from Belgium. What's up, Jan? Hello from New York City. Good to see you. Joshua, did you watch the game last night? I did watch the game last night. Most of it anyway. Man, the Bears are tough to watch on offense. I think they got 2 first downs in the second half. Yikes. But yeah, Minnesota definitely playing their best ball of the year in the last 3 weeks. No question about it. But yeah, that was a tough game to watch. Neither one of those teams are really offensive juggernauts, that's for sure. Greg, thanks for the super chat. Hope you're feeling better, and at least the Bears still suck is still true. Hey, Cousins got his first win on Monday Night Football. Everyone keeps touting that first win on Monday Night Football while forgetting that quarterback wins are not a stat. Doesn't matter if it's Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers. QB wins are not a stat. Not B-roll. What's up, man? I'm worried about Rivers slicing our defense. Veteran QBs seem to have our number. Hey, don't look any further than last year when Phillip Rivers was out in Los Angeles with the Chargers and basically walked up to the line of scrimmage, saw what Mike Pettin had on offer, and went, oh, okay, I'll adjust the protection, make a route adjustment, and just walk up and down the field all afternoon. Going to be interesting to see if he has any other kind of plans for one Mr. Rivers on Sunday. Any update on Lazard? He should be up by Wednesday. Wednesday is the deadline. Matt tried to play coy yesterday, but it did sound like he'll be up by the deadline. I'm saying it looks promising. Will Pettin be back next year? How do you feel about pursuing Leonard from Wisconsin? Jim Leonard's a hot name around Wisconsin for understandable reasons. The job he's doing with the Badgers. I just don't see Matt LaFleur reaching out to a guy who runs the same system as Pettin and, who came from Pettin's tree. But I guess it's possible. We'll see. Speaking of the defense, one thing I did want to say is, can we get Rashan Gary on the field more? This guy is playing some lights out football. And there are certainly snaps where he struggled against the Jaguars. I think he's trying to do a number of things pass rush wise, probably at the behest of the coaches, where, it's pretty obvious they should just let him cook with his physicality. But he certainly brought it there at the end when it was necessary. But there are plays that maybe don't show up in the stat sheet that he is making. One in particular, there's one a swing pass, kind of a screen to a wide receiver where the wide receiver makes a defensive back miss. And if Gary doesn't run that thing down, there's a good possibility that it ruptures into a touchdown. And he comes from the exact opposite end of the field to make that play. Things like that, the effort there. Oh, who's calling me? Oh, I bet I know who that is. The effort, the physicality, and I know they are wanting to keep the Smiths on the field, but especially with Preston, it's hard to justify keeping him out there over Gary when Gary just seems to be the more effective player. Preston and Z are playing roughly 80% of the snaps each and every game. And I believe Gary's hovering around 35 to 40%. It's time to, maybe not a direct switch, but it's definitely time to get Gary on the field a whole hell of a lot more. If we pressure Rivers, he will fold. Well, Joshua, most quarterbacks are that way, but it's not just easy just dialing up pressure, because as we saw last year, oftentimes the Packers would show their hand early in the snap count and or pre-snap, and Rivers would just make either a protection adjustment or a route adjustment and take advantage of whatever pressure call was on. So I do believe they'll probably try and play coverage for the most part, but those guys got to win up front. 100%. Love this every morning. Get to hear about the Packers. Colby, that's the whole point, buddy. Who do you see realistically cuts the Packers make next year to free up some cap space? I say Lowry for sure. Anyone else you have in mind? Justin, fans always jump to cuts. Maybe it's restructures. Players have value. Now, maybe they're overvalued by their contract, but Lowry is a fine worker bee. He is probably getting paid a little bit above what you would like salary cap wise, but I don't think they're going to straight up cut him. Maybe they do. It's a possibility. Preston Smith is obviously another example of a guy who you would think the Packers would most likely try to approach about a contract restructure. There will probably be a number of those conversations being had, not just in Green Bay, but around the league, given the fact that the salary cap is set to either stagnate or go down for the first time since the salary cap was invented, basically. So yeah, I wouldn't be so quick to jump to cuts necessarily. That's not to say that won't happen or they won't consider it and or do it. But I do think they'll look to restructure guys first before outright cutting. Why can't all three play? Why is Lowry getting so many snaps? Why? Well, they can, and they do. But you're not putting those three out there for, say, 1st and 10 against a power run personnel group. You can talk about getting blown off the ball. You certainly don't want Gary or Preston in there over Lowry in a 3-man front. I mean, there are times that the three of them do play together, and they are pretty damn effective. You saw it there at the end of the game against the Jaguars. But it is pretty situationally driven. Hillary is Pettin waiting for the playoffs to use all of his good stuff. One can only hope. I highly doubt it, though. I joked with Matt about that last year when he was on transplants, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're saving all the good stuff for the playoffs." Coaches don't tend to do that. Brendan, what's up with Clark? I see. What's up with Clark is he's playing out of his mind. He had a really good game against the Jaguars. Just because he doesn't make SportsCenter highlights or get clipped and put on Twitter or doesn't make big sacks instantly snapping off the ball and breaking into quarterback in 2 doesn't mean he's not playing really well. He's playing really well. He played probably his best game of the year. Whether he's taking on double teams, whether he's disengaging from solo blocks, whether he's setting the pocket and pushing it and not allowing the quarterback to step up, there's a reason those guys are getting pressure off the edge. Just because he's not on the stat sheet, just because he's not making like J.J. Watt or Aaron Donald type plays doesn't mean he's not playing well, because he is. He played really well on Sunday. That's what's up with Clark. Do they care about run defense, though? Well, Mike Pettin doesn't. We know that. Do they escrow 10% of player salary like baseball next year? No. Packers and Cheddar, the PA fought against that pretty hard. Can't wait to see Lazard back. Krista, I am with you. You put him back opposite Devontae, and now you got MVS cooking. Whoo, baby. Give me some of that. Andy, that's a really good question. Something with MVS clicked, or back to Coach Killer next week? I tell you what, the guy we saw on Sunday is the guy we saw all camp back this summer. Plays every day, each and every down. We'll see. I tend to think he'll still have a drop or two that drives you nuts. But hopefully, this is the start of maybe a little bit more of a consistent run. Craig, thank you for the super chat. Any weaknesses on the NDD? Can we run up the middle or the edge at all? Or will this be a passing-heavy game? If I know Aaron Rodgers, even just a little bit, he will lobby with LaFleur to, take to the air in a neutral environment where, I think they'll still run the ball. They'll have to. They'll want to. But, I do think this is a game where they will be dropping back quite a bit. I could be completely off base here. God knows. I thought it was obvious that they should try and run between the tackles against Tampa Bay, and they tried to do everything but. But to me, I do think this is a game where they will try to put it up. Try and take advantage of the fact that they're in a neutral environment. Big Cheese, thanks for the super chat. I know I'm looking in the future, but do you think the Packers could lure Jim Leonard over from Wisconsin to be our new defensive coordinator, or too big of a jump for Jim? I talked about this at the start of the stream, Big Cheese. I talked about it yesterday. I suspect I'll be talking about it a lot as long as Jim Leonard's still in Wisconsin. I just don't see Matt LaFleur making that call. to a guy who runs, or comes from the system that Mike Pettin is running. If he moves on from Pettin, he's probably going to want to run a different system. Now, maybe he thinks, hey, we've got all the pieces here. I don't think the system is terrible. I just don't like how Mike runs it. Maybe he makes that call. Is the jump too big for Jim? I doubt it. I mean, he's played in the league. I do think, obviously offenses have evolved somewhat since he played in the league, but I do think he's smart enough and talented enough, a good enough coach to do it. There would be a big jump, and I don't see that being the move LaFleur would make, but you never know. You do never know. Dylan, thank you for the super chat. The fourth book of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson was released today. Big compliment to you that I'm taking a break for the live stream. Dylan, I am honored. Truly. You know what else was released today? The holiday special for Star Wars Lego on Disney+. So the fact that I'm here with you guys, not watching that, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I mean, it was released today, but I'd be doing this regardless. Josh, thanks for the super chat. With Lazard coming back, will that help or hinder MVS's confidence? I don't think it has anything to do with MVS's confidence as far as Lazard being back. Lazard won't be taking his snaps. He'll probably be taking, Malik Taylor's and guys like that. They won't be seeing the field as much. They'll still rotate MVS quite a little bit. And hey, if anything, it should help him. He'll probably get, brought down the pecking order a little bit as far as who they line up against defensive back-wise. So I think it'll only help. Draft a first-round D coordinator. There you go, Joey. Is that Eli Ellie? Jim doesn't want to leave Madison. He said it plenty of times. He wants to live in Madison and raise. Okay, that's great. Is he a football coach? Is he speaking into a microphone? Then take it with a grain of salt. That's all I'm going to say. Nick Foles is terrible. Thanks, New York Finest. Aaron Jones, rusty still, or are the defensive game planning well? They took advantage of the Packers up front, and I think they had a lot of 8-man boxes. The Packers up front couldn't get it working. I don't think it was anything having to do with Jones. I think they just got whipped. They couldn't make anything work. I think most of the kind of plus runs that you saw were from Jamal Williams just grinding stuff out. That's not a knock on Aaron. It's just they did a really good job up front. The Jaguars did. We'd like to hear your take on the play clock issues we've had for several years. Travis, you must not watch our game day live streams because my take is that it is fucking frustrating. And as Matt LaFleur said week one, when I asked him about it, he knew I was going to be the one questioning it because it does drive me insane. I have no answers for you other than they do like being able to look over what the defense presents. And Aaron just likes to take the play clock down. And who are we to argue with two-time MVP, Super Bowl winning quarterback Aaron Rodgers? Are the Vikings going to make the playoffs? No. Holman looks good. I agree. Preston Smith fell off this season? I don't think there's any question. Now, who knows? Maybe he rounds into shape here in the second half of the year, but yeah, he has not started gangbusters at all. What's with teams stacking the box? Not afraid of wide receivers, not afraid of Aaron? I don't think it's ever that simple, CR. I do think, that wasn't so much a case of stacking the box traditionally. They played a lot of that cloud coverage where it's 3 deep and everyone else is in front. We saw the Chargers do that last year. You see the 49ers do that. Of course, the 49ers didn't have the personnel to really do it as much as they want this year. But yeah, once you do that, you take away certain concepts. But now you also saw the safety roll over to Devontae. Well, okay, then MVS took advantage on that big touchdown. It's never as simple and delineated as, oh, this is why. There are always kind of several layers to it. But I do think teams know the Packers want to run the ball, and everything they do on offense flows off of that. So they're trying to stop that first and foremost. But then they pay with things like 70-plus yard touchdowns to MVS. Axel, I like that. Hi, Nags. Sorry I'm late. It's quite all right. Thanks for joining us. Amar, thanks for the super chat, buddy. After hearing you and Andy, I do feel a little bit better about the win. After seeing the Vikings and Bears, please, Pettin, blitz Rivers. I mean, yeah, We'll see. I suspect he won't, though. I suspect he'll play coverage, but we'll see. Did you understand what Goody meant by having more options by signing Bakhtiari, even though it's a hefty contract? Audio John, absolutely. They did a really good job. And if you look at, I think Spoon had it first. Tom Silverstein had the numbers first. So this year, he got 1.5 million more added to his salary. Next year, his cap number hovers around 11 million. I believe that's the number. I mean, going into a contract that's paying the guy 20 plus whatever million on average per year, to have the cap hits are always the most important. And that's why I always tell people, I said it on Twitter, each and every time there's a contract extension, always wait until we get the actual numbers, because you're always going to see, he's the quote unquote highest paid tackle in the league or offensive lineman in the league, in league history, etc. And that's all true on paper. It's all about what the cap hit is. And the cap hit is where the puzzle pieces have to fit, right? And that's where the GM and Russ Ball are working to make everything kind of line up. And the fact that, his average per year may be 23, whatever, but the cap hit being only 11 million gives them incredible flexibility. And that's on top of Kenny Clark's next 2 years. The cap hits are really low comparative to, they will then, after I believe 2 years, jump up to around 22 whatever million per year. That's incredible. That gives him insane flexibility comparative to what he's making. So it's a really good job by Russ Ball. It does allow them to be a little more flexible than they may have been had they, if those cap hits had been a little bit higher. So I think it's just another example of how lucky we are to have not just Gutekunst, but definitely Russ Ball when it comes to piecing things together. David, thank you for the super chat. Sorry, guys. KC rounding into shape. This only means good things. I very much agree. Kenny Clark is a bad man, and he had a good game on Sunday. If we don't make Rivers beat us this week, I'm on the fire petting train. Travis, welcome. No, I'm kidding. How did Josh Jackson look on Sunday? Not as physical as he had the previous weeks. He looked, I'm not going to say timid, but he looked not as sure. And I think he held up okay in coverage. Golly, some of those plays where they either tried some of the wide receiver screens or they ran to the perimeter. Just, I don't know, man. It's something he did. I don't know if it was the competition. Maybe the wide receivers are a lot better when it comes to their blocking assignments, etc. But he just did not look as up for it and or as physical as he had in previous weeks. Maybe that's an aberration. Maybe that's just the lack of energy that LaFleur was talking about. But yeah, and again, I don't think he had a bad game, but he was not as physical as he had been previous weeks, to my eyes. Doesn't the salary count against the cap? Parts of it. It's all about the contract language, buddies. Cameron, thank you for the super chat. Sometimes it looks like we miss an AJ Hawk or a Desmond Bishop, or even like a Clay Matthews in terms of fiery attitude when it comes to game day. Do you think Goody looks for more players like that? No, and I think that's kind of an issue in Green Bay. It has been for decades, probably since Ron Wolf was around. I do think they like guys who are even-tempered, who are even-keeled, much like their quarterback and their coach. They want guys who don't swing too far one way or the other after a win or a loss. They want guys who are professional and blah, blah, blah. And that's all well and good. But you never have that guy, that one kind of fiery competitor who does get jacked up. And I do think Kamal Martin has some kind of glimmers of that. But when you're only on the field for 13 snaps, it's hard to let that out, right? Now, they won a lot of ball games with guys like that. So it's hard to really pick it apart, except for the fact that they haven't had a really good defense in a long time. I think, the tail end of the 2014 year, they were turning into a good defense. They played damn well down the stretch in 2014. But outside of that, it's probably been 2010 since they had a really good defense. And other than that, I do think they are kind of missing those guys. Definitely. Those types of guys. Bring some energy, bring some juice, as the guys like to call it. So, but do I see Gutekunst changing how he goes about finding talent? No, I don't. What about Mike Daniels? I think Mike fell under what Rodgers likes to call false confidence. And I like Mike. He and I have always gotten along really well. I love his game. But I do think, that kind of rah-rah in your face kind of thing in the locker room kind of started to grate on people after a while. It's one thing to say it all week, but then you get on the field to be that guy that played to the edge of the whistle guy. And you saw it come out kind of at the worst times. Don't forget that I think the last year in Green Bay when Mike had that hit on the late hit on Stafford that kept a drive alive on that, night game. And it's those things where it's a tricky balance. You want to be energetic and you want to pump guys up, but you got to play within the letter of the law, so to speak. So just finding those guys is hard, I guess, at least in Green Bay. Devontae had a case of the drops until somewhere in his third season. Now look at him. Perhaps MVS can have the same proved it season. Alex, I mean, there's some merit in that. It's what I continually point to when people call to cut him. You got to let guys develop. James Jones went through the same thing. He led the league in drops and then led the league in touchdown receptions. It's like you got to let guys mature and develop. However, it is kind of like it's his third year now, and you would expect those drops to stop, and they certainly don't seem to have. And the thing with Devontae is, I think people forget that second year, as frustrating as it was, it really kind of stemmed around the second half of the home game against the Lions. That was the game that was really bad. Then he had a bad drop in Arizona. He had a few others sprinkled in down the second half of that year. But for the most part, that one half of a game really colored people's perceptions. He had a good rookie year, he had a good third year, and that whole season he was battling an ankle injury. So I do think, yes, definitely let MVS develop, and he's still proving his worth, so to speak. But it is definitely now time for him to stop dropping the football. St. Brown is just not producing like I thought he would have. Adrian, sometimes, guys come off those injuries and it takes a while. Sometimes it never happens. Sometimes they never reclaim their form. That's why all off season, I said, you never know how guys are going to look when they come back from especially a long layoff with injury. And then he had a new injury at the beginning of the year. Who knows? Maybe he rounds into shape in December and all of a sudden is producing and helping them for a push. But yeah, he's definitely, I don't want to say, fallen off because he really was never up at all this year. He just hasn't given them anything. We have an unsung hero in Mercedes Lewis. Allen, he is a pro's pro, absolute baller. Love having him on this squad. I love his presence on the team. I love him on the field. Everything about him. Tyler, MVS will make a great Super Bowl catch. Calling it now. I like the way you think. All right, everybody, I'm going to have to get going. I can't thank you enough for all the questions and for hanging out, talking some Packers with me. Please hit like on this video, subscribe to the channel. And if you're so inclined, please consider giving us $5 a month on our Patreon page, patreon.com/cheeseheadtv. It supports everything we do. Times being what they are, though, I understand if you can't jump on board on Patreon. Please just hit like, hit subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. Cheesehead TV, we are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day. Go Pack Go.